to my words, oh yeah, my meditation way. Hear my loud cry, my King, my help, for I to thee will pray. Yeah, thou shalt early hear my voice, I early will direct my prayer to thee, and looking up an answer will expect. For thou art not about us in wickedness delight, no evil shall abide with thee, nor fool stand in thy sight. All evil doers thou dost hate, cut off shall liars be. The bloody and deceitful man abhorred is by thee. But I unto thy house will come in thy abundant grace, and I will worship in thy fear toward thy holy place. Because of watchful enemies, oh, lead me by thy grace, and in thy righteousness thy way make straight before my face. Let all who trust in thee be glad, in shouts their praise proclaim. Thou savest them, let all rejoice who love thy holy name. For unto the righteous man thou wilt thy blessings yield. With favor thou wilt compass him about as with a shield.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. What a joy it is to be here today on this Sabbath day. The joy of the eternal, even in times of sadness, when you receive sad news. But we thank him for his presence. We thank him for his comfort. We thank him for, from the time even before we were born, he has known everything concerning us, and he has preserved us even until this day where we're gathered together in him. That's the key thing. For our lifestyle, our conversation is foremost with him, then with each other. For if we're here and we're not with him, it's useless. But if we're in him and then we're together, then it is worthwhile. Um, so we're thankful for what he is doing in our lives. Very thankful for his mercy, for saving us, and for filling our hearts with love and goodness, a love for righteousness. Today we will be going through the book of Acts, hopefully finishing chapter 1. We did, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I said the book of Acts. My apologies. We did that some over a month ago. Romans, finishing the book of Romans, Romans chapter 1. Last Sabbath we did from verse 17 to 25, and so today we will continue and hopefully finish that this particular chapter. But before I do that, I had wanted to do a reading, and I think it's meet to do that reading in First Corinthians, but I'll most likely read that during our sharing time, the portion about love in First Corinthians chapter 13. But in interest of time, I'll do that possibly during our sharing time if time permits, or someone else could even read it. But let's go from here. So Romans chapter 1, and as I said, we did verses 17 to 25. We saw how the wrath of Elohim was revealed from heaven against all things that are unlike Elohim, and in terms of righteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. So they suppress it either knowingly or unknowingly, but by their actions, the truth is suppressed. Um, and Elohim's wrath is revealed against all of that. And we mentioned that sometimes. What? How is his wrath revealed? We don't know. His wrath is revealed because of the effects that happen, the sufferings that occur um, because of the works of men, the diseases, the wars, the fears, the hatred, the pollutions, all of these things that are all happening because mankind suppress the truth. Again, either they're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, doesn't matter. They're suppressing the truth. And so the wrath of Elohim, rather than the love of Elohim, is manifest. The sufferings, the pains, because Elohim could stop those things if the people were living right. But because they're doing it in unrighteousness, he allows it to happen. He allows the consequence of their works of suppressing the truth to manifest. And so we have a world full of evils and sufferings. The human experience is frightening sometimes. We thank Elohim that he encourages and protects us. So why? Why hit the wrath? Because they know Elohim. How do they know him? By everything he has um um shown. It's manifest. No, that's why just about anyone without the Bible, unless they're suppressing the truth, anyone without the Bible can reason, yeah, there has to be a creator. It's just that simple. As long as they could think, and they're not enemies of the truth that will sear their conscience and go against what's evident, then yes, they'll immediately admit that there is a creator. So Elohim allows his wrath to fill the earth. In other words, he doesn't send blessings, he allows the troubles to come on account of their works. Again, these things are known since the creation. You know, um, his invisible attributes, according to verse 20, are clearly seen. And so we must open our eyes and understand whatever Elohim's attributes are, it's not something that's hidden, it's something that's clearly seen. And if we can't see it, that should be an alarm to us that we need to open our spiritual eyes to know what is it that I'm supposed to be looking for to see and understand. Because Paul says it's clearly seen. Clearly, keep that in mind in our walk. And that's why I say it's not just the written word. We have to observe and learn to observe the operation of his hand, the works of his hands, the deeds of his hands. His hands are the word and the spirit. We have to be able to identify those. And once we start learning to identify the works of Elohim, those things that allow him to be known, that are clearly his invisible attributes, which are clearly seen, we can start seeing and understanding it, and have a faith rooted in truth, and not just in words, but in the demonstration of the things that are clearly seen. And then be recipients of his power. So it says, clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and and divinity, or potent, being the head, the sovereign, so that they are without excuse. So no one has an excuse for unbelief, according to this text. You see, we don't need all of this sophistication to know this, because before there was a telescope, a microscope, before there was all this technology, this was written. And Paul is not talking about something that's new in his time. He is speaking about a principle, a paradigm that was true long before him. That that Elohim's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, the works of his hand, even his eternal power and his sovereignty, so that no one is without excuse. No one. They're clearly seen. So we need to train ourselves, open our spiritual eyes, open our minds to see those things that are clearly seen and not just text. Because if all we know is our text, then when there is an issue with the text, our faith will be trouble. Our faith must go beyond the text. We must look to the text because we have faith outside of the text. We must have the faith that is connected with the reality of the works of Elohim foremost. When Abraham was in his own land before he knew Elohim, he was seeking Elohim. Why? Because he saw the evidence, these clear evidences that there was a creator. That's why he started to seek him, not because he read it in a book or even heard it from a preacher. It's very important that we don't lose sight of that and become people that are driven to and fro by doctrine. And if somebody, forbid, should show a problem with a text, we're about to fall apart. I used to be like that until 2011, when I prayed to Elohim for him to help me know him in 2011, because my faith it was just stuck into the scriptures. I didn't connect with the reality of the living Elohim apart from the scriptures, who existed long before the scriptures were infinitely before the scriptures were written, whose servants served them long before the Torah was given. Right? So we must be like that. And the scriptures must be subject to the knowledge of the true Elohim. And that's important. That's why Abraham could hear his voice and was willing to do the most frightening thing. If any one of us would have hear a voice in our head say, do such and such, what would we think? Oh, it must be the devil, right? Because of what we read in the scriptures. Or how about the priest or the prophet who was told, go marry a prostitute? Huh? That must be a devil telling me this. No, that's why we have to have a relationship with him above the book. The book is secondary. So clearly seen, we must have that real life relationship with the creator of heaven and earth, so we can know his voice, how he speaks to us. Some of us he has shown us he speaks to us in certain ways that we recognize, and certain ways that are always proven. It's not, Elohim said this, Elohim said that, and then in the end everything falls apart. Then Elohim obviously didn't speak to any individual who claims Elohim has spoken to him, and then everything falls apart. No, the one Elohim speaks to, for real, the work will continue and the work will manifest that it was truly from Elohim. Okay? Even before he or she opens the mouth, people will say, surely this is the work of Elohim. Or this, if they don't know, if this is successful, whatever you are doing, it's successful, it's working. That's how, the Logos never sends forth his servants to accomplish something and it doesn't get accomplished. That's not true. When we try to do something and it really falls apart, then we know it wasn't Elohim. As we read in the 10 commandments, you shall not take the name of the Eternal, your Elohim, in vain, for the Eternal will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. When any of us should make a proclamation and say it's of Elohim, and then it's a dead end. There's no fruit. There's no growing love. It's just, rather than encouraging the unity of the body, it divides the body further. Then we know that's not of Elohim. Because the work of Elohim never divides. Never. It always points to Elohim, so that people can flock under Elohim. Let's move on from here. I don't want to take, I want to finish this chapter. So because although they knew Elohim, as we saw, they did not glorify him as Elohim. Neither were they thankful, but they became futile. Everything to them is, they're entitled to everything. Like I said, the sun rises, so what? It's always there. Oh, the rain comes, so what? It's always there. What's the big deal? There's the sun in the sky. Wow, big deal. Well, it's Elohim who causes the sun to rise upon the righteous and the unrighteous, and causes his rain to do this the same. We should always give thanks to Elohim and never take anything for granted. And with a real heart, not out of fear, but out of gratitude, because Satan could deceive us and give us a fearful heart where we're always afraid, or let me thank Elohim so something doesn't happen to me. No, let's understand his love. He has a lavish love. So let's give thanks to him because he is so gracious and kind in all things. So professing themselves, so because although they knew not, they were not thankful, and they became futile in their thoughts, right? As we saw, foolish in their hearts, were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools. Okay? And changed the glory of the incorruptible Elohim into the image made like corruptible men. And as I said, I'm going to say this again, as I said last Sabbath and probably the Sabbath before. There are a lot of people out there that's creating division about Hebrew and about a lot of things, not just about Hebrew, but I'm particularly concerned about the Hebrew matters, because it's supposed to be people who have better understanding of Scripture and who are obedient to the commandment, yet they're tearing others down. And that to me is a clear sign there's no spirit of Elohim working there. I do not blush or hesitate from saying the spirit of Elohim does not tear down people, innocent people, does not divide innocent people, does not do that. And proof of it, you see a lot of these people now, as I've mentioned last Sabbath, and it's more and more, I keep seeing this on Facebook and on YouTube. These so-called Torah observant people are doing what? Making images, especially representative of Yeshua, as a lion, a fiery lion, or an angry roaring lion. I saw one with a talit, like a four-footed creature, a lion with a talit on its shoulders and a crown on his head. What is all that about? That's representing Yeshua. And it's inappropriate. We're not to make such images. They professing to be wise, and these are the kind of boasting they know better than anybody. They're putting Hebraic mind and so on. But professing to be wise, they became fool, or whether the Greek mind or whatever mind other than Messiah they claim to put. I don't want to attack the Hebrews, just that seems to be a trend now, which is evident. And this is what Elohim does. No matter what's not true, when something's not true, Elohim will make it manifest that it's not true. So what's going on now, these so-called people who are boasting about this version or that version of Hebrew, now a lot of them are just making images of Elohim, of Yeshua as a lion. And we have to be spiritually discerned and understand what Elohim is doing. Therefore, they became fools. Why? And they changed the glory of the incorruptible Elohim into an image made like corruptible man. You see many of them making images of Elohim, like a shining being and all of this stuff, pictures of cherubim and also all of the various understanding, or they'll make it into image of birds, four-footed beasts against lions, and creeping things. We're not to do that. We're not to make images. Elohim said, you will make no image or any likeness of anything in heaven. And as I said, it's not a matter of, oh, well, I'm not making an image of Baal. I'm not making an image of whatever. I'm making an image representing Elohim. It's not supposed to be done. Okay, so those people with boasting about their language and putting on, now they're behaving foolishly, disobeying the very Torah they're boasting that they keep. Okay, so we have to be spiritually discerned so we don't fall into these traps. When we see people are tearing down others, there's a difference between telling the truth and tearing down others and dividing. We are to speak the truth, but the truth has to be just that, the truth. But when we start veering away from Elohim and trying to say it's the Greek language or it's the Hebrew language or it must be said in English or whatever, it must be which things are not written in scripture, then these people will veer off the wrong path. What must be is that we must put on the mind of Messiah. We must understand the scriptures, whether in Hebrew, Greek, English, or any other language. When he says his name, we must understand his name in Hebrew, or if we speak Hebrew, English, Spanish, Greek, whatever language we speak, we have to understand and know what his name means. It's useless to know the sound if we don't know what it means. Therefore, Elohim also gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. As I've mentioned, tattoos, people doing all sorts of strange things, bizarre haircuts, bizarre hairdos, all sorts of strange things, piercing their bodies. And some of us, in our past, we might have done, but those things are past. Thank Elohim, amen. These things are in our past. We don't do that anymore. We don't cut ourselves. We don't pierce our bodies. We don't go out to add any more tattoos to ourselves if we had any. These things are not Elohim. And I see a lot of some of the people today that profess to know, Yud He Vav He, however they pronounce, they have tattoos of his name on their necks, on their arms. This is what's all that about? They're running with information they don't understand. And that's one of the problems. People sometimes will read something before they know the whole counsel of Elohim. They run and try to do things before they understand. We have to understand a matter before we speak, and especially before we act. We have to understand the whole matter. Until we understand the whole matter, we don't act. And that's why a lot of people, they do these things. And there are the religiously correct that will never tell the brother or sister, you really shouldn't put that tattoo on. Wait, slow down. Let's look at the scripture and see what it says. They'll just, pat them on the back. Everything's okay. You're a brother. No, we need to speak the truth, but in love. Who exchanged the truth for Elohim for the lie. Images and things of that nature. Some churches boast, we've been around, we're the oldest church, they say, quote unquote church. And so, we make images and we have reasons why we make our images and so on, making excuses for breaking the commandments of Elohim. And I pray for these people that Elohim will open their eyes and turn, because the spirit of Elohim does not contradict what he writes, what is given in his word. It doesn't contradict it. And so when these people that they may mean well, they're bowing to these images of Yeshua, of so-called Yeshua on a cross, or to one of the apostles, one of the saints, saint this, saint that. All of these things are a violation of the very scriptures. And we know in Torah, it tells us if anyone claims to be a prophet and turns you from breaking the commandments, you are being tested. Even if that prophet does a sign, even if that prophet prophesies and the prophecy comes true, but if he or she is leading you from the word of Elohim, not to follow that person. So it doesn't matter how old these so-called churches are, if they're misleading people to break the commandments of Elohim in any shape or form, they are not the servants of Elohim. They may be the oldest church, but they're certainly not the congregation of Elohim. Certainly not the ecclesia theos that we have here, because they practice violating the very commandments of Elohim. Let's move on. So verse 25 to the end says, who exchanged the truth of Elohim for the lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator, who is blessed forever. So rather than the creator, they'll rather worship the creature. And as one record showed, um, there were this encounter, a record of one of the ancient believers, an encounter with a Gentile group. They were listening to one of the apostles teach about such things, about worshiping created things. And they were all laughing, hearing how the Egyptians worship animals, and this. But then the bishops, the teacher says to them, well, at least they were worshiping things that were alive. Some of you worship things that are brick, and you worship stone, so that was his way to gear them, to lead them into not condemning others, but that all of it is wrong. We are not to worship the creature, whether it's something we make of our hands or something that exists. We are to worship only the creator. That has always been the path of the righteous. They always sought the eternal Elohim, creator of heaven and earth. And that's the defining identity of Elohim throughout the ancients. That's how you will know which nations knew the true Elohim. As I've mentioned briefly last time, a lot of the nations, and as the scriptures show, knew Elohim. It's over time they lost the knowledge of him, and they became futile in their own thinking, and they decided to create images of the true Elohim like the Canaanites did. The Canaanites made El, and they spoke the Hebrew language to some one degree or another, and they called their image El. It wasn't a false, quote unquote, God. It was an image of the true, but they're not supposed to make an image of that. That's the point. Remember what it says in verse 21. Verse 23, and change the glory of the incorruptible Elohim into an image. So it's not the glory of Baal or some other thing. They're considering the true Elohim. You know what? Let's make an image of him. Let's make something that represent him. And if you see the Canaanite pictures, one of them I saw is like a person with some sort of crown on the head sitting on a throne. And I think that, if I'm correct, that was supposed to be El. And that's why the scriptures refer to what people call sometimes it's called Hebrew as the Canaanite language, or the language of Canaan, as I've mentioned a few Sabbath past. So, and they've worsened from trying to make images of the true into now making images of demons and animals and dead things and of their own imagination. None of that is acceptable. We are to worship the creator of heaven and earth, and we will again be able to identify those nations who had the knowledge of the true Elohim by that understanding, the creator of heaven and earth, and some other wonderful names or descriptions they gave, ancient descriptions speaking of the true Elohim. Those records are there preserved for us so we can know that these words are true, that are in the scriptures. And then each one of those nations, what Paul described here, happened. Then they turned away from the true Elohim. They made images, each nation in its own way, and then they fell away from the knowledge of Elohim altogether and stopped worshiping the true Elohim. They don't even mention the name they used to use, and they come up with new names or other names to worship. So for this reason, Elohim gave them, verse 26, for this reason, Elohim gave them up to vile passions, for even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise, the men, leaving the natural use of the women, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error, which was due. For even as they did not like to retain Elohim in their knowledge, even like Elohim gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality. Okay, keep this in mind. These are those that has that are given into this debased mind. This is what become being. See from verse 28, being filled with all unrighteousness, not some, all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil mindedness. They are whisperers. Nachash, remember in the Garden of Eden, when it was the Nachash that deceived Eve. The serpent was called Nachash, a whisperer, whisperers or slanderers, or what's that other word? Gossipers, talebearers, backbiters, haters of Elohim. Oh boy, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, they cannot discern, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who knowing the righteous judgment of Elohim, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. Let's go back and we'll finish. Verse 25. So they exchange. Remember what I said, the truth of it. Remember I said those images they started to make in ancient times, they were not originally images supposedly to represent some other being. It's that they don't have a relationship with Elohim. They're basically losing their spiritual mind, and now they're making images of what they perceive the true Elohim is to worship. But then after that, they exchange the truth of Elohim for the lie. Now they're not even concerned about make Elohim anymore. They're making rats into Elohim, birds, and even fellow men, and especially among the Greeks, warriors and people of great renown. I won't even mention their names. Most of their so-called gods of Greek were actually people who existed that did, whatever, something, some war, some defense, something that the people were so impressed by that they made them into a something to worship. Each one of them, not each one, but a lot of them. Some of them were probably had no substantial, no person that it represented, but their main object of worship and all those, they were all human beings who did certain things. And at the time of the ancient writings, their graves, the graves of these people that they claimed to be deities were still there, especially in the time of the writing, and even after the Bible, the graves of some of these beings they call deities were there, of the original people. So they were actually people that they deified. And what great religion today do we know do the same thing? Has that habit of deifying dead people. They say they're not, but they are. You were bowing down to them, praying to them, trying to speak to the creator of heaven and earth through them, which thing no one should do. There's only one mediator between man and Elohim, and that's the Ben Adam, Yeshua, the Messiah, the elect one. He's the only one. There's no other. There's no Rhema between Elohim and Yeshua. There's no such thing. There's nothing between Yeshua and the Father. There's nothing between the Spirit and Yeshua and the Father. They're all, as he prayed for, they're one. They're one. They all proceeded from that single Elohim. But they've turned the image of the true to a lie, and they exchange it for a lie. They worship created things instead of the creator. And as a result, Elohim gave them up to vile passions. That's a manifestation of his wrath. Okay, he could have, because they did not love the truth. Okay, you don't want the truth, then so be it. Because Elohim is gentle and humble. He's not going to impose himself on those who don't want it. That's what the law of liberty is all about. See, Elohim seeks those to worship him in spirit and in truth. He's not seeking people who must have law to worship him. Don't get me wrong. What I mean by law is judgment or a threat of death, or bit and bridle, as the psalmist says. He's looking for people to obey his commandments, as we read the royal law, this one of the 10 commandments, without coercion, with love, with a full heart, that there's nothing there that we don't love. And we especially love the law because it comes from him. It's not a matter that there's no law. There's no law against those who do what's right. We have to make sure we understand there is law, but Elohim's law is to be observed without penalty. Those are the ones he seeks, those to worship him in spirit and in truth. Not those who need to be coerced, not those who need to hear, well, if you do that on the Sabbath, you're going to die. Or if you do this, you're going to die. Or if you do that, you're this. No. Those who worship him in spirit and truth, all their hearts, all their soul, all their being, like Abraham, like Noah, like Isaac, Jacob. These people did not serve Elohim because of some threat. Notice, in all his interactions with Abraham, what threat did he ever give Abraham? Oh, Abraham, if you do this, you're going to die. None. Oh, Noah, if you don't do this, you're going to die. No, none. Oh, Isaac or Jacob, if you do this, you're going to die. Noah, Moses, if you don't do this, no. He said none of that. There's only one group of people, that's the Israelites, and that only happened after they created the calf. Then the threat of death came about to terrify them. Why to terrify? Not to their end, but so that they would fear to do what's right. I was speaking with my daughter recently about some aspects of this, how it dawned on me this week that where it says, if somebody does this, you will die, Elohim is very gracious and merciful. We wonder, wait a minute, you say you're going to, it's because he gives them time to repent. I didn't catch this. When you read, he gives them time. For instance, someone could be committing adultery. He doesn't immediately allows it to be discovered necessarily. We have to understand that. It's when that person doesn't stop, believe it or not, what he had, that's how he actually did it. That person will be caught and put to death. But if that person wasn't caught, that's why in the law, he doesn't say you need to go and say, I committed this crime or I committed. You don't need to do that. If you stop, he won't harm you. It's so evident, because how many times Israel was sinning and sinning, they should have died. He should have destroyed them, but he didn't. He says, stop. He sends the prophets, please stop. So you could receive blessings and occur. Stop. It shows you he didn't immediately destroy them. But when they insisted on their sins, even then he was merciful. He said, when the Babylonians come, surrender, because they will take you to a land far from here, and it'll be a blessing to them, actually. But they didn't even want to do that. They rebelled, so they were crushed and destroyed. Same thing happened in the New Testament times. Elohim gave them the Roman rule, and they were given freedom to observe their religion. They refused to believe the prophets that said the fourth beast would rule over all things until the stone built without hands would destroy it. Yes, but no one was supposed to rebel against Rome, just like no one was supposed to rebel against Babylon. And that's why Yeshua is, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that stonest the prophets. He's saying he wept over them, but they did not know the time of their visitation. But going back to this, so the law, Elohim wants us to keep his Sabbath, his holy days, his dietaries, everything, but without coercion, without bit and bridle. Nor should someone be stressed about keeping those things. What am I saying? I'm saying, just like we read in Acts, that when the new believers come, we're supposed to be patient with them. As they said, as they wrote in their letter, Moses is preached every Sabbath. In other words, they will get to learn the law. So don't stress new believers. Oh, are you keeping Sabbath? Are you doing this? These things will come in time. Should they be taught it during the Sabbath? Yes. Should they be stressed? And no. What should be stressed is the love for Elohim, the love for his son and his ways, the love for his commandments, and to tell them, you can't cultivate that love on your own. You have to do what? You have to ask Elohim to help to make you love him. He does not command love. You understand? Love has to be freely given, and he knows that. But he instructs the people what he wants. He's seeking he's seeking from them to love him with all their hearts, all their soul. He wants them to honor him even as he has honored them. That's what he's looking for. And he will give it to those who ask. So we have to ask Elohim to give us a heart to love him above all, to keep his commandments. So we're not doing it out of bit and bridle, and we're have this sense of punishment hanging over our heads, and that's why we do what we do. I mean, there's room for that. Don't get me wrong, but it has to grow. It can't stay where it's out of that fear. It's natural to fear death, and there's a part of that, but we need to grow from being afraid of death to being thankful for life, and for loving, and from fearing judgment for breaking the commandments and being free in Messiah, and so that we can love Elohim and keep his commandments through love and not fear of death. Let's move on. So likewise, also the men. So all these horrible things, they do, for he gave them up to a reprobate mind, to vile passions. See, that's the wrath of Elohim. You understand that he's talking about. So it's important for us to get that. And it's like he's letting them what? Reap what they have sown. Those who reap to the flesh will reap corruption and eventually death. But those that sow to the flesh will reap corruption and die. But those that are of the spirit will inherit everlasting life. So they've exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Think about all the stuff, surgeries and pills and drugs and Botox and whatever it is, fake this, fake that. Oh my goodness. The level of the vanity and pursuit after vanity is endless now. We see it all around this. Likewise, also the men leaving the natural use of the women, burning their own lusts, committing what is shameful, and receiving in themselves the penalty of their error, which was due. Again, these are all natural occurrences. You break the Elohim's natural law, not natural law, quote unquote, by men, but natural law evident in nature itself. You do certain things, these type of behaviors engender sickness, disease, injury. You understand, to the body and to the mind itself. And so receiving in themselves the penalty of their error, which was due, deserving. And even as they did not like to retain Elohim in their knowledge, Elohim gave them up over to a debased mind, a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not fitting. This is the wrath of Elohim. The blessing of Elohim is to grow in his knowledge, to be conformed to the image of his son, to become like his son, so that when he comes, when we see him, we shall be as he is, having everlasting life, joy, strength, and just unspeakable majesty and greatness he will give to those, but not these. These, unfortunately, they debase themselves and doing things that are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness. Once they reach that standard, that debased mind, and that's why you see people do some horrendous crimes today. It starts with searing their mind from Elohim. Once a person does that. They've pushed away the spirit of grace. And they bring upon them all these horrible things, being filled with all unrighteousness. Just think about it, all unrighteousness. You know, that to me is frightening, to be filled with all unrighteousness. Wow, what that means. Sexual immorality, wickedness, a deliberate disposition to do evil, to do wrong, covetousness, to want what's not yours, maliciousness, to want to harm the innocent, full of envy, wanting what's not theirs, a murder, one to kill an innocent person without cause, strife, to argue and start trouble without cause, deceit, to fraud people, to lie to them, to mislead them intently, to devise something of our own imagination and lead others astray to no end, to tear down what little a person has, telling them, no, what you have is no good, but then you tear down what they have with your words or your actions, then you leave them nothing, you leave them desolate. There's a lot of that going on physically and spiritually and in the body, where people have these strange doctrines where they destroy the faith of others with their questions, with their false doctrine. They destroy the faith of others. Then they leave them desolate. They leave them empty. They don't give them anything. Beware of those type of teachers who do that. They speak against the Bible. Oh, the Bible was this, the Bible was that. Oh, you can't trust the Bible, blah, 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 on and on and on. And then, okay, what do you have for me? I have nothing for you, my friend. Nothing for you. That is terrible. Deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers. Rather than speaking things openly, they speak in secret to create discord or to tempt, whatever it is. They whisper, gossip. They're backbiters. They're friendly with you, in your face, but behind you they talk ill. Again, they slander. They hate Elohim by their actions. Haters of Elohim. They don't want Elohim to exist, because if Elohim exists, oh my goodness, I have to give an account of all my works. Yes. Everyone has to give an account. So they hate Elohim. Violent, proud. I could go on the list. Boasters, inventors of evil things. Oh my goodness. Let's think about it. Medicine. Every pill has a negative effect, sometimes worse than what it's trying to treat, right? Every technology is built on causes of death, is built on things that pollute. Even the things mankind tried to make are all flawed, creating sickness, doing harm. They're all so much convenient, but it wasn't like that in the past. Mankind used to invent things that were relatively harmless. But today, we don't care about if it harms our neighbor, as long as it's convenient and it will sell and it will make us money, and it will be used by those who don't care about their bodies and to keep their temple holy. They don't care. Give it to me. Fill me with it. The drugs and so on. Now it's marijuana now. Everybody. I've even seen so-called believers jumping on board the cannabis. They want to sell it. I was so disappointed when somebody I thought was a brother put on WhatsApp, selling cannabis, and I said, what? And again, it's the Torah. Cannabis, they believe Israel used it. Oh my goodness, Israel is not our example. Just because if such a thing was found, that cannabis was used in the temple, it doesn't mean it was ordained by Elohim. They don't think. There's nothing in the scriptures that said that anybody use anything that would alter their ability to think and function. Elohim would never give something evil to people. Oh, but it was found. Well, they also found tons and tons of idols in Israel, in Jerusalem. Does that mean we're supposed to? No, they got to understand. We don't follow Israel what they did. We follow what the scriptures say, and when what's evident in the heavens and the earth, that Elohim created all things good for man to consume, to help our bodies grow, to help our minds, so that our children, when they're born, they will be healthy, not zombies, not with anything. And forbid that any of us in our past has involved in ourselves in that. Children of Elohim, know that your sins are forgiven and all your past sins are forgiven. And we don't walk in that anymore, but we go forward in the spirit of truth. But we have to be there to tell others that's not the way to go. But it's sad when you see believers promoting such a thing. Inventors of evil things, disobedient to their parents. And when it says parents here, it's speaking, of course, in the sense of a good parent, disobedient. I don't care what my mom says. I don't care what my dad says. I don't care. I'm doing my own thing. Undiscerning, they can't discern. Unable to discern, full of suspicions, full of fear. None of that is good. Untrustworthy, can't trust them. Unloving, they talk a lot about love, love, love. Where's the love? Where's the love? But they're unloving. It's a strange thing. I found that a lot of people that do that tend to be unloving, unmerciful. Yeah. Let's finish with verse 32. Who knowing, it's not unknown to them. And that's why we have to be discerning. The Bible says they know, because sometimes we behave like they don't know. Especially those of us that teach, we have to understand they do know. And when we teach, we're not supposed to condemn them because they know, but we're supposed to draw them because they know. That's why we preach. Oh, brother, remember when your mouth used to be clean? Remember when you didn't utter a curse? Remember when you were so gentle and kind? Remember, go back to that. Go back. You can. And if you want, I will help you. That's how we're supposed to approach people. Because they know, who knowing the righteous judgment of Elohim, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. That's the wrong side to go. But we are to draw people in the whatever little bit of the image of Elohim that's left, that Elohim allows you to see. When we minister to, but that's what we're going. We're not attacking the symptoms, the hatred, the jealousies, and all those are symptoms of an underlying thing. It's a disconnect with Elohim, a misunderstanding of Elohim. And our job is to reach people where I can identify the little bit of the spirit of Elohim, I should say the image of Elohim that's left in them, and work on that image. Work on that image. Love that little bit of image that's in them and cause it to grow until they overcome their sins by the mercies of Elohim. Thank you for listening, dear brethren. Back to you, Brother Thompson.
Thank you, Brother Jackson, for that wonderful exaltation on Romans. And